The gaming industry in Africa has undergone massive growth over the years. There's an estimated 11 million gamers in South Africa, and they are starting to spend more on gaming. However, despite increasing access to the gaming world, the industry and its community lacks representation when it comes to women and still have some way to go in making it a truly inclusive space. Tackling discrimination head-on will allow more women to enter the gaming space, and the first way to do this is to feature women who are making waves in the gaming industry. This morning, we're joined by Ashley Brinker Groves, who is making headlines in South Africa and abroad in the gaming industry. Ashley, a very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very well, Ashley, and it's good to have you on the show this morning. For those not in the know, can you give a brief summary of who Ashley is?
Yes, certainly. So my name is Ashley. I'm 29 years old. I've been in the gaming industry since I was 11, actually. I'm married with a son, and I'm a solution design analyst for my career, and I'm a gaming organization director as well.
You've been gaming since the age of 11. So what kind of gaming competitions did you enter then?
So back when I was 11 years old, what had happened was my dad had upgraded his computer. So my brother and I had shared the computer that kind of got left behind. And because the graphics were not so great, we actually ended up playing like role-playing games and things like that. So I used to play a game called Ultima Online, and the admins on the server used to create these quests for us. So we had to go into dungeons or pick items or solve riddles, and then we would get rewards in-game for it. I only started really entering the competitive scene when my brother started playing 1.6 competitively. You know, attending his games, watching his events, getting more involved in the scene was how it started for me.
There's talk of a professional esport player. What is it, and how can one monetize the profession?
So a professional esport player can be categorized as somebody who earns a regular income through the game, okay? So either through the contracts from gaming organizations, so they get paid a salary like a normal job, or from a brand and sponsorship and investment, or from the events and tournaments that they compete in, you know. And although it's been improving, it's not a sustainable career in South Africa at this particular point in time. We've seen a lot of investments over the past 5, maybe 6 years, but because of COVID and obviously the pandemic that we've been experiencing, those investments have had an impact. You know, it's been negatively impacted. Negatively impacted. My line dropped a little bit there. However, due to the pandemic and the lockdown and the restrictions and obviously everybody being at home, we've seen an increase in popularity of esports. You know, the number of players has increased, and with brands trying to reach out to their target markets through these avenues, I think we will start seeing the investments increase in the near future.
Now, Ashley, what are some of the stereotypes around female gamers, and why do you think there are so many?
So the esport industry and the gaming industry has been male-dominated for quite a long period of time. You know, women are only starting to emerge into the market now. But with that being said, one of the most common stereotypes is that women are not as good as men when it comes to certain games. You know, we can't compete against them. But we're starting to see this being falsified in the sense of, for example, in 2017, there was a lady called Sasha. Her nickname is Scarlett. So she was the first woman to win a StarCraft 2 international event, playing against some of the best male teams of that title. And it's incredible to see. You know, then we go across to the other side and we look at things like content creators, and the person who's at the forefront of her industry is Sam Tech Girl Right, you know, with all the work that she's done with various organizations. And she's even been invited to talent and host and anchor global events overseas. It's incredible to see. But going back to stereotyping, right? There's been a lot of stereotypes around gamers in general, and as we start seeing more focus and expanding more, it's starting to be peeled away. You know, that it's not so generic stereotyping anymore. And it's the same for female gaming. The more exposure we have to female gamers and the scene, the less stereotypes will exist.
And why are you advocating for more women to join the industry?
So for me and my journey through esports, I've met so many amazing people, and they're always willing to reach out and give a helping hand, So they've uplifted my experiences and my knowledge, and not just in terms of the games that I played and the tactics that we use, but in life and general lessons as well, sometimes in business. And with the way we're seeing technology progress and the improvements on the internet connections through the different continents, the world is starting to become a much smaller place. And this is a really, really exciting thing in our industry, because people tend to have the misconception that our esports is just about the athletes, or about the esports players or the gamers. And that's not particularly true, okay? Especially if you take it and compare it to something like the Olympics, for example. And don't get me wrong, the fact that a person is able to hone their abilities and become the best of what they can do to compete at such a stage like the Olympics, or in gaming, an equivalent would be the Dota 2 Internationals, for example. It's an incredible thing to see. However, much like the Olympics, there's a lot more that goes into hosting these events than the athletes who compete in them. I mean, we're talking about videographers, photographers, producers, journalists, events and exhibitions needing to set up the venue. Then we're talking about hosts and panelists and statisticians that go into it as well. There's a lot of open venues to women who want to be involved in this industry, not just as a professional gamer.
And take us through some of the challenges that you are faced with when starting Amaryllis Gaming.
So when I started Amaryllis Gaming, the very first challenge that I had was actually finding 4 other women that felt the same way I did about competitive gaming, that wanted to take that next step and be dedicated and be thorough with our games. And then once we managed to find each other in the community, it was then trying to be taken seriously in the community, because previously female teams in the likes of Source weren't really as competitive as what we wanted to be or what we intended to be. So it created a lot of stigma around the team. We then had an interview with Sam, Technical Rights, who I mentioned earlier, and things kind of snowballed from there. Then we had Energy Esports, which is a large gaming organization at that time, picking up their all-female team, and we ended up having a competitive show match, and it was just amazing. We then merged with White Rabbit Gaming, because White Rabbit Gaming wanted to invest and give back to the female community, to help the female community grow, and we shared that together. And now we're sharing the resources between the brands, because White Rabbit Gaming and White Rabbit Amaryllis are now co-brands.
And having said that, Ashley, Red Bull is one of the leading companies involved in gaming and inclusion. What do you think other companies can learn from them?
So Red Bull has kind of operated on the fringe of what is considered mainstream, if I can say that. They have really been at the forefront of the industry when it comes to supporting and marketing of events and players and sports, that kind of push the limits and take things further. They've initialized marketing aspects that not only locally but globally as well when it comes to gaming in particular, So I really believe that other companies can really take away from that and look at other investment opportunities outside of their brand plan.
All right, Ashley, lovely chatting to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.